Well, as I recall in one of your skits, flattery will get you nowhere. But seriously, there must have been a easier way to explain your concept.
I think the easiest way is to give examples. So indulge me and let me tell you a story.
Go ahead.
I'm driving on the freeway. Peter is my passenger. He says, when you come to the next rest stop, please stop. We stop and Peter goes into the convenience store and he says, be back right away. We continue our trip and I ask Peter, where did you go with Tiffany after the party last night? Peter smiles and says mysteriously, no comment. Being nosy, I press him and say, I asked you an innocent question and you have no comment? Peter says, you know, I'm obsessed about protecting my privacy. So don't make a mountain out of a molehill because I'm silent.
So what is the point of your story?
In the story, Peter is speaking perfect English, but nothing in his speech demonstrates the knowledge of American culture. The next story will make my point more clear.
Okay, so let us hear it.
I'm driving, this time with David as my passenger. David says to me, when you come to a hitching post, please stop. We stop at the rest stop. David goes into the convenience store saying, be back in a New York minute. We continue the trip and I ask David, where did you and Donna go after the party last night? David smiles and says, mysteriously, I am taking the fifth on that. Being nosy, I press him and say, I asked you an innocent question and you take the fifth? David says, you know, I'm paranoid about protecting my privacy. Don't make a federal case out of my being silent. In my opinion, David's English is just as good as Peter's, but he is a more sophisticated speaker. His speech shows more flair, color, sense of humor, and cultural substance.
Please elaborate.
David is a sophisticated speaker because in just a few sentences and without any esoteric, obscure, or pedantic words, he exhibits a deep knowledge of American culture. Do you know what a hitching post means?
No.
As late as early 20th century, America was still an agrarian society. People rode horses and wagons to get around. When a rider takes a rest, he dismounts and hitches the reins of his horse to a post, as we see often in cowboy movies. Thus the term hitching post becomes a synonym for a rest stop. When David says hitching post, he demonstrates both a knowledge of American history and a cute, creative way of asking for a rest stop. As a former history professor, I sit up and take notice.
I see.
Next, David says that he will be back in a New York minute.
So?
In a subtle way. David is showing that he knows the stereotype of the New Yorkers being rude and impatient. So he is making fun of New Yorkers while indicating that he will be back very shortly.
So what is next?
David then takes the fifth, which is short for taking the Fifth Amendment, entitling David to remain silent under the United States Constitution. And David further shows his knowledge of American law by saying, don't make a federal case out of it.
I see that David's knowledge of American history and society puts him in a sophisticated colloquialism group where Peter does not belong. Am I correct?
Exactly. Note that David takes something serious like the Fifth Amendment and uses it in a humorous way instead of saying no comment, which is so plain vanilla. David also shows that he understands the federal system of the United States government and that federal cases tend to be bigger than state cases.
Any more words of sophistication from David?
Yes, just one more. When David uses the term paranoid about privacy, he shows he knows the American psychological terms. To conclude, in just a few sentences, David demonstrates a comprehensive understanding of American society and culture, whereas Peter speaks flawless English but shows no sophistication.
I am hip.
Ah, I see that you're getting the hang of my favorite vocabulary. Then let us move on. What I call sophisticated colloquialism will become clear soon enough once we get into the book's outline and the video skits.
Is your course online the same as your book outline?
The overall organization is the same. I was planning to revise and write a second edition until I decided to go online. Suddenly a new universe opens up to me.
Is the change really that dramatic?
For a writer like me, it truly is. When I'm writing a conventional book in print, I have to worry about so many practical things such as the length of the book, the printing cost, and the workload for the editor. I have to write very concisely, especially in a bilingual book where translations take up precious pages. I feel so constrained.
Not being an author, I do not know those constraints.
However, once I decide to go online, I feel so liberated. By self-publishing online, I can write as long a book as I want. I can edit my own work. By using videos and subtitles, I can cover materials in 5 minutes that would have taken 10 written pages.
That is the beauty of being multimedia.
Now I can focus on being creative and develop the personalities who inhabit my little literary world. If you have read The 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, you will know what I mean. Not that I equate myself with his masterpiece.
Wow, that sounds great. Just one more question about the terminology. Your book is written for advanced learners, so who are they?
To me, an advanced learner is more about a mindset or attitude than about the level of language competence. He or she is a person who understands that knowing the culture which underlies the spoken language is what separates a sophisticated speaker from other speakers.
Anything else?
The advanced learner also understands in today's world, creativity and initiative are more valued than rote learning. If there are terms and expressions he does not understand, the advanced learner will go to Wikipedia and Google and the library to find the answers.
What you said so far is great, but going online means you will have no revenues for selling your book.
Fortunately, I can finance the endeavor as a non-profit project, at least for now. In fact, it was my friend Christina who first suggested that I should go viral in multimedia.
And what did she say?
Christina is an expert in the internet. I showed her my book and told her that I was writing a second edition and needed her advice.
And her advice?
To make a long story short, Christina convinced me to go viral. But for marketing purposes, she said, "You are short, dark, and homely, and have a heavy accent. You should get yourself a tall and handsome all-American young man as poster child for your project while you stay behind the scene and just write."
Wow, did you accept her advice?
I rolled my eyes, laughed, and then said, "Christina, you're so right. I mean, I am short and homely, but why rub it in? I mean, with friends like you, do I need an enemy?"
Well, did Christina feel offended?
She just laughed and then put on her cool business consultant face and said to me, "Have it your way. I'm just telling you the truth."
She is a very good consultant.
On my way out, Christina wished me luck. I said to her, "By the way, if you run into your good friends Brad Pitt or George Clooney. We asked them to be my poster child for my book project.
And what did she say to that?
Christina knew I was being sarcastic, but she was a good sport. She laughed hysterically in stitches and high-fived me.